Yes, it's back. I'm not calling full-time yet. Join me again for my podcast series as I take a further trip down memory lane and reminisce on my breaks to Europe in search of top-level football. Less time wasting and hopefully more European goals. It was December 2016, battered and a little under the weather after limping over the line of a half marathon in October. I'd contracted jogger's heel 5 miles in. Like football, always make sure you train properly. To put a spring back in my step, I couldn't resist the opportunity for more Champions League football. So dusting myself down, Donny and I set off to a new city, a new country, Portugal, a run to the sun of Lisbon, and Benfica versus Napoli. Once more taking an early EasyJet from Bristol, we landed safely at Lisbon Airport, which in 2016 was renamed after Humberto Delgado, a Portuguese Air Force general, diplomat, and founder of the TAP Air Portugal national airline. The airport has great transport links and we were able to get the underground train to our accommodation. Having had the spring taken out of my step, having such an extensive metro system was a weight off my mind and foot. Arriving in good time a little before check-in, we escaped the drizzle and had a wander around the area, picking up some supplies. Nearby was an El Corte Inglés, the Spanish department store chain we had already encountered in Madrid, meaning our needs would be very much self-catered for. Our accommodation was Real Residencia, our first upgrade to an apartment, and it worked out to be one of the best stays we've ever had. Real meaning royal, it was certainly fit for us. A big lounge area with sofa bed and thrones which I adopted, Donny taking the twin bedroom, a fully fitted kitchen area for breakfast and lunches, and a large bathroom. In colours of coral and traditional reds, to us this was luxury and a bit of a jewel. A bit jaded and hungry, we headed out in search for eats and got our first look at Praça de Comércio, Commerce Square. And as it was December, at its heart, a large decorative Christmas tree. Known by the locals as Terreiro de Paco, as it was where the palace used to stand before an earthquake in 1755. It is the gateway to the city. Relaxing into our surroundings perhaps a little too much, we settled on Italian chain Nosolo Italia and fell into an unusual tourist trap. Blinded by our rumbling bellies, the look of the enticing and attractively wrapped breadsticks was too much, and were devoured without a second thought. But crumbs did we pay for them. Just what you need alongside what was a tasty pizza, extra bread. Having chilled our loaves with a couple of beers, we would head back to our apartment to rest up, as what was to follow was a busy day exploring the sights of the Baixa district.
Brown bread, white bread, sliced through and cut bread, all different shapes and sizes. Nowadays you'll even find your breads in strange disguises. But there's no bread like the bread I've found, 'cause it's not wholemeal and it's not stone ground. It's not in the shops at a penny or a pound. This bread will satisfy, it'll truly satisfy.
The morning brought glorious sunshine, which would last the rest of the trip, and we started where we had finished in Commerce Square, with an awesome view of the beautiful blue Tagus River, seen through a reflective glare from the square, as this idiot had forgotten to pack his sunnies. Exploring the harbour between two bridges, to the right the 25th of April Bridge, and to the left the Vasco da Gama Bridge. The 25th of April Bridge is the largest suspension bridge in Europe. Completed in 1966, it's often compared to the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, as was designed by the same American bridge company. It has 2 levels, top level for cars, and added below in 1999 a route for trains. The Vasco da Gama Bridge, of course, named after the great Portuguese explorer, commemorating the 500th anniversary of his arrival from India. Being the first to reach the country, traversing the Atlantic Ocean. In the distance, a striking sight on the other side of the Sanctuary of Christ the King monument, a shrine standing in the municipality of Almada and inspired by the Christ the Redeemer statue in Rio in Brazil. On a religious theme, we would next walk to Lisbon Cathedral, Santa Maria Maia Church. Originally built in 1147, it has had to be renovated and resurrected many times after numerous earthquakes. I was certainly not aware of these constant eruptions and brought new thoughts of a region of resilience. Well, they say the Englishman's home is their castle, and next was Castello de São Jorge, St. George's Castle. For a reasonable €8.50 you could explore this archaeological site, some ruins dating right back to the 7th century BC. Being on top of a hill, this was an excellent place to find a vast number of viewpoints to snap away at the city vistas. Other religious sites en route were the monastery of São Vicente de Fora and the Carmo convent. This Gothic church is possibly the most shocking and sad story from the 1755 most devastating earthquake, the roof collapsing in on the congregation attending an All Saints' Day Mass. In need of a lift, we headed towards the Santa Justa lift, or Carmo lift, but firstly taking a seat in the central Rocio Square for some much needed refreshment and people watching across its wandering wavy pavements as they take in its fountains, monuments and the Queen Maria II National Theatre. So on to our final act for the day. For the cost of €10, we join the queue for the key connection to the higher streets of Largo de Carmo. Opened in 1902 as part of the public transport system, it has an observation deck at the top of its 45 metres. It is high enough to get some excellent views without being too vertigo-inducing. The next day, 6th of December 2016, was match day. Were it being Champions League, match evening. So we had time to follow the water's edge a little further first and visit the amazing Oceanario. Rated by TripAdvisor as the best aquarium in the world in 2015, its closeness to the ocean giving access to 8,000 sea creatures, including sharks, piranhas, rays, jellyfish, crabs, seahorses, and the obligatory fish favourites from Finding Nemo. Completing the colourful cast, amongst the ariums, cartoon divers, otters, poison frogs, penguins and puffins. Phew, that was €14 worth. Needing to come up for air after the wild warmth, there was a handily placed McDonald's outside for a cooling drink and McFlurry. In reach was the telecabin gondolas, a scenic cable car ride, but keeping our feet on the ground, for now at least, we took a look around the area. Closer now to the Vasco da Gama bridge, we came across the Vasco da Gama Tower. Lisbon's tallest skyscraper honours the city's maritime history with a sail-shaped structure to its side and offers the most panoramic visions from its 145-metre, 360-degree views. We then met the Homem Sol, the Sun Man, a quirky abstract steel structure by Jorge Vieira. It certainly did the job for us. Our continued celebration of the sciences came to a close in Pavilhão do Conhecimento, the Science Museum, which is a hell of a lot easier for me to say. Having got a double D in double science, I required some support. This entertaining educational space saw us cycling across a high wire and also saw us test the power of our legs. Look out, Roberto Carlos.
30-yard free kick with a 20-yard run-up.
With some downtime before travelling to the game, we stopped off at an official merchandise store in Rua de Augusta. Connecting Commerce and Rocio squares, it is claimed to be the city's busiest street, with high footfall amongst its many shops. The store also included Red Cafe, so we sat ourselves outside in the chairs, upholstered with players' names and numbers, as if it were their shirts, and supped on the local lager Pilsner, Sagres. A premium beer in the UK at the time, it prides itself on being brewed with 100% natural ingredients since 1940. With darkness brewing, we hopped upon the Blue Line Metro to Estadio da Luz and the Stadium of Light. With the ticket costing just 25 quid, it was also light on our pockets. The stadium opened in 2003 on Avenue Eusebio da Silva Ferreira. Holding over 65,000, it held several matches in Euro 2004, including the final. The shock win by Greece, beating the host country 1-0. It was named Most Beautiful Stadium in Europe in a 2014 poll run by prestigious French publication L'Équipe. The attendance this night was 55,634. As we took our seats, we had once again been handed a publication of our own, in the form of a Benfica newspaper, celebrating its 74th anniversary. It featured match reports, season stats across all sports of the brand, including basketball, volleyball, handball and hockey, and it had an article on Luizão reaching 300 games in the Portuguese Championship. Benfica's manager was Rui Vitória. Appointed at the start of the 2015 season, he already had accrued a league title, League Cup and Super Cup under his belt, alongside setting a new record of consecutive away wins in October 2016. He would go on to manage in Saudi, Russia, Greece, UAE and the Egyptian national team. Napoli's manager was the experienced chain smoker Maurizio Sarri, a Napoli native starting his managerial career in 1990 with the majority of experience in Italy, but he'll be no stranger to Chelsea fans, where he had an eventful 2018-2019 season, becoming the first manager to be undefeated in their first 12 Premier League fixtures, winning the Europa League title undefeated, and notably having an almighty fallout with keeper Kepa in the English League Cup final. Kepa refusing to be substituted prior to a deciding penalty shootout that Chelsea then lost to Manchester City.
Well, he's walking away. He might
might be walking away from the stadium. Is he walking away from the job?
Talking of Manchester City and goalkeepers, the Benfica goalkeeper was Ederson. Other players who English fans will know: Victor Lindelof of Manchester United and Villa, Nelson Semedo, Gonzalo Guedes and Raul Jimenez, all known to Wolves fans. Jimenez now being at Fulham, where substitute Kostas Mitroglou also had a spell. Another sub was Andre Carrillo, who had a spell at Watford. An unused sub, Julio Cesar de Leon, QPR fans may remember. The Napoli team had Pepe Reina in goal, experienced at Liverpool and Villa, Kalidou Koulibaly of Chelsea, Allen in midfield for Everton, and striker Manolo Gabbiadini, who Southampton fans may remember. Unused subs were goalkeeper Raphael, that Reading fans may know, and Italian international midfielder, well known to Arsenal and Chelsea, midfield maestro and penalty expert Jorginho. The player that stood out to me was Albanian international fullback El Said Husay, who spent all his senior career in Italy and is approaching 100 caps for his country. The stadium acoustics were filled by a rather up-tempo Benfica theme. This followed up by the pre-match display of flying eagles. With the Napoli ultras' claws firmly out, would Benfica soar to victory, or would Napoli clip their wings? It was a Benfica battle of a first half, with only half chances either end. Gabbiadini did head in the 20th minute, a rebound from a Marek Hamsik shot, but it was ruled offside, 0-0 at half-time. Breaking a deadlock in the 60th minute, and making the game finally come alive, a fine flick pass from substitute Dries Mertens sent through Jose Callahan for a clever clip finish over keeper Ederson, celebrating by putting a dummy in his mouth in tribute to his new baby daughter, Aria. In the 79th minute, super sub Mertens shone again, a delightful dribble into the box, firing low past Ederson's right hand into the bottom left corner, kissing the post on the way in. In the 87th minute, finally some Benfica belief. Raul Jimenez pouncing on a mistake by defender Raul Albiol, running into the box to power pass Reina and switch the stadium of light back on. The fans now fired up for the last few minutes, but it wasn't to be, and at full time, a 2-1 defeat. No rage but relief, the smoky clouds lifting as news of Besiktas's 6-0 thumping of Dynamo Kiev sent both the Italians and Portuguese through to the knockouts. Both teams would exit at the last 16 stage. Benfica, after winning the first leg 1-0 against German team Borussia Dortmund, were walked over by the Yellow Wall 4-0 in the second, with a hat-trick from Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and a goal from a young American forward named Christian Pulisic. Napoli unfortunately came up against the eventual winners Real Madrid, losing both legs 3-1 after leading in both. Rather than negotiate our way through the heavy crowds and traffic, we crossed over to neighbouring shopping centre Centro Comercial Colombo for a Burger King and talked through our takeaways from the night's game. The following day we would return to the stadium in the light for the museum tour. And what a massive contrast in terms of how quiet the area was on a non-match day. Having plenty of time to admire the statue of Portuguese great Eusébio da Silva Ferreira. We had a great guide as we took a tour around the pitch and the dugouts. Our gaze was directed up into the stands where we were shown where some souvenir seats had been ripped out by the notoriously driven Napoli ultras, memorably handing back manager Luciano Spalletti's steering wheel that they had stolen 2 years prior from his Fiat Panda when he left the club in 2023. Our route inside took us to a face-to-face meeting with the birds we had met the previous evening. Eagles Vitoria for victory and Gloria for glory. The Eagles are the club nickname, mascot, and are resplendent on the club crest. We checked out the changing rooms, then changing rooms, welcomed by a Eusébio hologram, the trophy room, containing the currently held Portuguese Championship Liga NOS trophy. Standouts for me were the ship-shaped Trofeo Vino de Porto from 1973, Solidarity Ball from a 1964 charity match victory over Chelsea, and the shirt of Bobby Charlton, worn in the 2-1 World Cup semi-final win over Portugal in '66, in which he and Eusébio both scored. The Black Panther, one of the super strikers of the 60s, he scored over 300 goals for Benfica and the first player to win the World Cup Golden Boot here in England in 1966, following up the Ballon d'Or he won in 1965. An all-time great, Eusébio passed in 2014 at the age of 71, and the whole nation paid its respects. We spent our final afternoon with a trek to the old town and old trams of the Beaker funicular, the steep cobbled streets and Rua Sao Paulo feeding us one last vision of the ocean. We couldn't leave the city without sampling pastel de nata, the traditional Portuguese custard tart. Answering our prayers, this pastry didn't disappoint. Its history dating back pre-18th century, it is said to have been created by monks, so egg yolks didn't go to waste when using egg whites to help starch their clothes. This mellow yellow had us relaxed and looking forward to our evening meal out. It was a place we spotted on arrival, and we were to go from Burger King to the Burger King. To this day, the best burger I've ever had. Arriving in good time, and it's lucky we did, we were seated within Ground Burger. Surrounded by a towering choice of craft beers, we eyed the menu, as well as the mounting queue of patrons waiting at the bar. A sure sign this relatively new brand was going places. Fresh ingredients, 100% Black Angus meat. McDonald's this was not. Opting for the double cheeseburger, it literally melted in the mouth. Washed down with a further beer, we couldn't afford to get smashed. We slept soundly, ready for our morning flight home, and no indigestion. That leads us nicely into this episode's city summary. Drugs, downhills, elevators, warm hearts, tradition, trams, and tarts. Lisbon decriminalised personal possession of all drugs in 2001, and this was apparent in the amount of dealers on the streets, from all ages and walks of life and almost around every corner, sometimes in clear view. It didn't take the shine off our stay, and we hope to return one day. However, it can feel a little unsettling and annoying due to the constant approaches, though everybody has their vices right, and we hadn't looked like addicts since Amsterdam. The cringe thing to say would be that our drug is good football, but that much is true, and a taste of a new country would call. For a piece of the action, come join me, as Donnie and I next sample a slice of Italy. Sold.